The trade deadline is here, Chiefs Kingdom, and well, let's talk about what the Chiefs could possibly do or not do, as we're going to talk about some last-minute trade rumors, some last-minute trade targets, and seeing if it's even possible for the Chiefs, especially talking about Richie James. Will he get moved ahead of the 2023 trade deadline? That is today at 3 p.m. We're going to talk about it today, but before that, make sure you subscribe for Chiefs coverage all year long. We're not going to just stop after the trade deadline. We got more content coming out. We have a Dolphins versus Chiefs watch party this upcoming Sunday in Germany, 8:30 in the morning. Make sure you join us, so make sure you are subscribed, as we're going to keep you covered no matter what happens today, tomorrow, all year long. Okay, today's show starts with Richie James. As again, you're watching the Chiefs Report. My name is Jay Sanders. I appreciate you here, but we got a tweet yesterday basically suggesting that Richie James could be moved ahead of today's trade deadline. That's coming from Jeremy Fowler, saying the Chiefs and wide receiver Richie James are exploring trade possibilities per source. James, who is on IR, could be healthy for a new team. It appears he's the odd man out with Mecole Hardman. James had 50 catches for the time, 569 yards and 4 touchdowns for the Giants in 2022. I'm going to say this. I would expect something to happen today. Now, I don't know that that's going to be a trade, and we'll talk about why, but I would think that Richie James' final day on the Chiefs is probably going to be today. Now, let's talk about a trade, because I think that may be the most likely scenario, given that, again, he just doesn't fit on this roster. The team that I picked was the Browns. I feel like they could really, logistically, one, they need him. Their wide receiver depth is not there at all. They could use the return man as well on top of that. But you're not going to get much from Richie James or a conditional 6th rounder there. That'd be a pretty tough ask for them. But, I mean, here's the thing. You're not going to get too much out of Richie James. And honestly, the Chiefs may think about cutting him, to be quite honest with you. Will the Chiefs make a move today at all, though? I know Richie James has been the talk around the town, but will they even make a move? Well, let me know in the comment section of today's video, as trade deadline is upon us. Type T for trade, type P for pass, and move on. What will happen? Let me know. Do you think the Chiefs will even do anything? Brett Veach has expressed some interest in Darnell Mooney. He's expressed some interest in Adam Thielen. But the problem is, does the money actually work? Will the Chiefs make a trade? Type T for trade, type P for pass. James' 2023 stats, nothing to look at. Want to know why? Because he's been on IR since week 2. He only has had 3 targets, 1 reception for 6 yards. He was already the 6th wide receiver on this squad. And to be quite honest with you, it was him and Justin Watson that were supposed to split time. Watson's been great this year, so can't really say that he would have even had much more if he was healthy. He just doesn't fit. Now with Justin Ross, they like him. They want to keep him. I know his off-field stuff is, well, not the greatest, but they seem to want to keep him around. Mecole Hardman comes along. You don't need a return man anymore. Now, you just got to get rid of Richie James, because ultimately the return man was his value. I mean, that's ultimately what he was signed on for the Chiefs to do, because they didn't really have a return man. They had Skyy and they had Kadarius Toney, but I don't think they were really willing to put them in the return game, risk injury for those two, although Toney and Skyy haven't done anything this year, to be quite honest. I think Richie James could be a return man in a lot of places. Obviously, past 2 years has been amazing, but he hasn't had that many opportunities. But if you go back to 2019, he had 53 returns, almost 700 yards, and a long of 81. And I'm going to take that from pretty much any return man I can. Listen, we're going to talk about the future of Richie James in a minute, but I can tell you one thing that the future is certain about. Prize Picks is the only place you need to go for daily fantasy sports, as it's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. Now, it's going to add a ton of exciting experience to your sports viewing days. It's going to make it to where you're going to have more fun while watching sports. Players can choose from a vast selection of sports and stat types not offered anywhere else, and you can even pick in-game projections after a game has already started, including halves, quarters, periods, and more. Check it out at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. I'm getting my picks in early for this upcoming Chiefs versus Dolphins matchup. It's an 8:30 game on Sunday, so I want to make sure I don't forget. I've got the more on Patrick Mahomes and Isaiah Pacheco with passing yards for Mahomes, because, let's be honest, the only guy on that Dolphins defense that is anywhere remotely worthy of stopping Patrick Mahomes is probably Jalen Ramsey, and he's only going to be playing in his 2nd week. Isaiah Pacheco, he only had 8 carries, and I don't understand why he didn't get more. He's going to get more this week, and he'll probably get more than 60 yards. Tua Tagovailoa. Listen, buddy, you've been doing a great year, but your time's up. Trent McDuffie, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. L'Jarius Sneed, one of the other best quarterbacks in the league. You're not going to get more than 285 yards. Not a chance there. So I'm going with the less with Mr. Tua Tagovailoa. Not a chance he gets more than 285.5. Make sure you go put your entries in for this weekend and go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS for a $100 deposit match. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Again, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Shout out Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Richie James is done either way with the Chiefs. I think that's the ultimate kind of overarching theme of this kind of segment is, listen, Richie James has come on to the Chiefs from the Giants, and they expected him to be a return man, expected to maybe get something out of him, but he just hasn't done much. And there's 3 options here for the Chiefs. You can trade Richie, you can cut Richie, or you can keep him and try and cut somebody else. If you notice there, 2 of those have him leaving the Chiefs. In a great world, they could cut him and keep him on the practice squad. I don't really know how that would work, though. For him, I don't think he'd want to stay there. He'd probably get picked up by someone else. But listen, you're not going to get too much value out of a trade. I think it may be cutting. It's the trade deadline, though. Some teams can get really desperate. Maybe just throw him out there, say, hey, we can take a conditional 6th runner, conditional 7th runner, because right now the Chiefs have picks 1 through 5. Why not try and go get yourself an extra 6 that you had traded away when you got Neil Feld Jr., who, by the way, hasn't done anything, so try and go get that 6th back somewhere. All right, I want you to be Brett Veach right now and let me know what you would do if you were the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs and you had the idea of trading, cutting, or keeping Richie James. What would you do? Are you trading Richie? If you are, then type T. If you're cutting Richie, then type C. If you're keeping Richie, think he could be a valuable asset in the upcoming days, weeks, months into playoffs, then I want you to type K for keep. Let me know in today's comment section. Let's talk about some last-minute trade targets here for Brett Veach. We've talked a lot about kind of what could go on, what could happen, but I've heard some rumblings of like what Brett Veach is looking at, and we're going to talk about those 3 wide receivers and kind of what exactly I think the overarching idea would be to get them. The first one is going to be Terry McLaurin. Now, funny enough, we actually haven't talked about him. In fact, this is his first time kind of being on the Chiefs report as, gotta be honest, it's a new name here. It's a new name. We have not seen him, but he fits the prototype of a Chiefs wide receiver in some ways. He's kind of that like speedy guy, but also has the route running ability of really a lot of good players. And look, the stats are obviously there for McLaurin. In fact, in 2022 and in 2021, same exact number of receptions, same exact number of games. The yardage was a little better in 2022, but the touchdowns were the same. Listen, he's a solid guy to have around, and he's having a pretty decent year thus far this year. I would like to see the Chiefs maybe throw out a trade to see what they would want for McLaurin. Yeah, I've heard Brett Veach likes him. I don't exactly know what that means. With the cap space, it'd kind of be hard to get him, though. The second option is Mike Evans. We've talked about Mike Evans a lot, and again, he seems like that's the type of guy that Brett Veach would go after because, let's be quite honest, he's such a Kansas City receiver. We've talked about him since, honestly, day 2 of the season, right after Thursday Night Football against the Lions. That was when we started talking about him. He just kind of fits the mold. He kind of molds well with Patrick Mahomes, type of guy that just is a quarterback's wide receiver. Stats this year are not bad considering his quarterback is Baker Mayfield. 5 touchdowns, the average is there. You can tell, though, he looks a little dismayed in Tampa Bay right now. I would like to see him coming over to KC. I think it could work. His contract isn't that steep. I think the third option here may be the best one, though, and that's DeAndre Hopkins. Now, the reason he's the best option is because his contract fits the best. He's getting paid league minimum this year, so the money could work if you just cut a couple people around. Plus, let's be honest, D-Hop would be so nice. He wanted to play for the Chiefs in the offseason. Chiefs weren't willing to give him the money that he wanted, which, I mean, he was kind of asking a lot for, I'm not going to say the type of receiver he is, but in terms of his age and value at this current point in time. He was asking for a little much, but the stats are there. He's still putting up numbers, and here's the thing. As soon as you gave DeAndre Hopkins a competent quarterback with, let's be quite honest, Will Levis instead of, let's be quite honest, Ryan Tannehill is not a competent quarterback whatsoever. So you give him a competent quarterback with Will Levis, and he gets 3 touchdowns in one game. Now in 2022, he had 64 receptions, 717 yards. That's not that much, but again, 9 games. This guy could actually work. And then in 2021, obviously 10 games there. But the big number you want to look at, D-Hop back in 2020, 115 yards, 150 receptions, and over 1,000 receiving yards, plus a 12.2 average and 6 touchdowns. Okay, we've talked about 3 receivers. Which one would you want? You have Terry Mclaurin, you have Mike Evans, and you have DeAndre Hopkins. If you had to choose one of these guys, then I want you to let me know in the comments. If you want Terry McLaurin, then type TM. If you want Mike Evans, well, then type ME. And if you want DeAndre Hopkins, then type DH. All 3 of these guys would be definite wide receiver 1s in Kansas City, which is, at this point, what exactly you kind of need. Let me know which one would be your choice, though, as, listen, the clock's about to strike midnight here at 3 p.m., so time's ticking for Brett Veach and the Chiefs. Who would you want? TM for Terry McLaurin, ME for Mike Evans, DH for DeAndre Hopkins. Well, I'll let you know one thing. We will have you covered no matter what if the Chiefs make a move. If the Chiefs don't make a move, we will let you know exactly what happens. So make sure you are subscribed. We're going to put out content every single day after the trade report, after the trade deadline, after literally everything that happens today. No matter what, listen, the Chiefs had a bad game this Sunday, but they're still primed for a good playoff run, and we're going to have you covered. We're going to have watch parties all year long, and hopefully Brett Veach makes a move, but we'll just have to wait and see. Peace out.